Okay, everybody. I make that 1 o'clock, so we'll start on time. I'm sure there'll be some other people joining us, but out of respect to those who've turned up now, I'd like to get started. So, firstly, if I could try and just manage some expectations. If you see me looking across the other side, I've got a couple of screens here, so I'm looking at some notes. I'm not ignoring you. Uh, First thing is, this isn't what I would describe as a typical sales webinar where you're going to get some story about how I was fat and now I'm thin, how I was rich and how I was broke and how I'm now rich. It's not about me, and it's not about the company even. What we want to do is deliver some real value to you. So other than the first 2 to 3 minutes, where we're just going to be setting the scene and the context, we're going to be running this like one of our training sessions. This is going to be 60 minutes. We'll be closing at 2 o'clock, although we'll leave the Q&A open if anybody wants to, has any questions afterwards. And I'll also leave some contact details at the end if you'd like to follow up with us on anything. As I said, I don't want to talk about myself or the company. If you do want to do some due diligence on us, you're more than welcome to check out my ramblings on the blog at www.closers.com, or feel free to connect to me and message me on LinkedIn, and it's Ian, IAIN Swanston. If you could just indulge me just for 20 seconds, we've got a lot of past clients, business owners and salespeople on this webinar, and I'd really like to thank them for signing up for the webinar and supporting us. I really do appreciate it. I've seen your names coming in the registration, and it's really great to see you again, so to speak. With regards sales, I was reading some statistics. 40% of SMEs accept chalking up a loss this year because of the pandemic. 1 in 5 SMEs fear they won't survive another lockdown. So I think for all of us, sales. I'm not going to suggest that it was ever easy, but it's certainly not got any easier because of the lockdown and the pandemic. And what I'd like to do is try and give you some ideas on what you can be doing, especially with Christmas coming up. There's some really good stuff that you could be doing in terms of prep and planning to get yourself organized and to try and sell or start selling to bigger companies. This is a 60-minute session. There are other sessions that we do. There's a second and third session. Why are we not covering them today? Quite simply, each of those sessions is 90 minutes. And the other reason, I guess that one of the main reasons, is that the salespeople that we talked to who wanted to sell to big companies, the biggest barrier from feedback that they were telling us was they just weren't sure where to start. And what we're going to do today is cover off that starting point and give you a system and a process so that you can repeat this in your own business. Like everything that we do, there absolutely is no magic wand. This is going to take hard work and time to actually prove a little bit of patience, but I promise you this will work for you. So, vision. And this might be a place that you wouldn't expect me to start with, but I know there's a lot of business owners on this webinar, and there's a lot of salespeople as well, but not many people talk about the vision. And I think at the moment, unless we have a vision, and that vision has to include COVID and lockdown, I think the danger is that our sales teams are going to potentially lose their way, lose their motivation. Vision creates hope, and without hope, the danger is that the people give up. And as sales leaders, we need to develop a sales plan that shows them a clear path to achieving that vision, because no salesperson wants to be unsuccessful. Everybody wants to be a winner, right? And it's our job to make life as easy for them, make selling as easy for them, and make it as enjoyable for them. So if you've either not got a vision, or you maybe feel that your vision for sales at the moment needs updating and refreshing because of COVID, I would really urge you to have a look at that and see what you can do to create a plan that's actually going to make sure that your salespeople remain motivated and remain on board with you. So, how to sell to big companies. I'm hoping you can see this. As I said, this is session one. In session one, we're going to be discussing the who. Who is it we're going to target? What sort of companies will we target? What would be things like the firmographics, the technographics that we're going to look at? And what can we do to actually prepare ourselves to sell to these big companies? And it's absolutely possible. The internet is a great leveler. The economy, when there's a down economy and a recession, it creates churn. People are looking for new ideas, new alternatives, and new options. So it's a really great time, in my opinion, to actually be looking outside your existing customer base. So one other thing really to try and manage expectations is that there are typically two types of people who are going to look at the content this afternoon. And the first group are going to look at this content and go, well, I don't think that's going to work for me. And that's one group. But there's a second group of people, and what they'll be saying to themselves through this webinar is, how will I make this work for me? Where does this fit in my organization? Where does this fit in my sales plan? Where can I adapt this into my sales process? And those are the sort of people who are asking those questions, who are, they tend to be lifelong learners. They tend to be people who are constantly hitting their sales targets. So what I would urge you to say to yourself as we're going through this, and I've left the Q&A open deliberately, as we go through the content, if you're not sure, use the Q&A function and ask, Ian, how does this work in my industry? Ian, how does this work in my city? Ian, how does this work in, when I'm targeting a specific job title? So please, I would urge you to use the Q&A function and make sure that you ask questions. It could potentially be a very short webinar if you're not asking any questions. So I'm going to keep flicking back between the screens here so I can actually see any questions. So as I said, feel free. The main thing I want to talk about this morning is, this afternoon, is creating a process. And a process has a logical start, a logical end point to it. And it then means that if we've got a process, we can measure where we are in the process. We can measure progress along the process in the terms of potential milestones. And we can also know that maybe if we go off track because things maybe don't always go according to plan, and a really rigorous process is great. It's great if you're a salesperson because it helps guide you. It's great if you're a sales manager because you can make sure that your team are wherever possible following the process. It's not supposed to be a straitjacket. It's more a guide than a straitjacket, but having a process of some description is really valuable to a lot of companies. And I'm not asking you to throw out your existing process. I would urge you to look at the content today, and see if you can actually add this into your process and try and, in effect, turbocharge what you've got. So, covered off process. The next thing we're going to just very briefly touch on is traditional training versus work-based learning. Traditional training tends to be what we would describe as event-based, where it's 1 or 2 days. And whilst that's great, it's got a limited impact, because I'm sure if you've ever been to a training course, the danger is that when you come back from that course, you've been out of the office for a day or 2 days, you've got an additional amount of emails, an additional workload, and what tends to happen is people very quickly drift back into the way they were working previously, the original sales behaviors that drove them to attend any form of training. And the studies show 89% of that knowledge is lost after 1 month. and that's quite shocking, really. It's not a great ROI if you're buying any training. What we focus our business on is delivering what we call work-based learning, and what that does is it creates specific projects where people can actually learn as they're doing the job. And I would urge you to actually take today's content and put it into a project, because as you can see there, 70% of learning is by doing. This webinar is at the bottom of the inverse pyramid there, and this is really, it really only accounts for 10% of learning. You will get some nuggets, hopefully you will get some light bulbs going off, but you won't really be able to learn this stuff unless you put it into action. And more importantly, you won't get any results unless you put it into action, because this stuff relies on you doing it. It's no different to when you go to the gym. We are sales coaches, and when you're at the gym with your personal trainer, your personal coach, right, you're the guys that are doing all the work. We're just standing and guiding and trying to make sure that you're doing things the way that you should be doing them in terms of following the technique or the process. The process that we use for selling to big companies is called value-led selling. If you've not heard of that before, it's nothing new. Nothing on this actual webinar you'll probably find is new, but it is turned into a process. It's turned into a process so that it's much easier for you to follow. You may find some new stuff in there, some little tweaks that we've put on some old stuff, but a lot of this stuff you may well be doing, and if you're doing that, I'm sure you already know the benefit of doing this. So, how to sell to big companies. One of the things that we hope for the process is it's going to help you save time, save money, shorten your sales cycle, and it's going to help your salespeople focus on the right activities. In sales, it's really easy to be busy, but being busy and effective is not the same thing. This information here is from a survey by Serious Decisions. If you've not heard of them, they're a very large marketing organization in the US, and they did some research on pipeline opportunity generation. As you could see there, in terms of marketing, when you're selling to large organizations, and I would describe them as enterprise organizations, marketing typically only accounts for 10% of the opportunity creation. When you sell to large companies, it's much more sales-led. You need that human interaction. You need salespeople to be knocking on the door, kicking doors down. Marketing, as you can see there, influences in the once the doors open and the salesperson's discovered an opportunity, but that initial opportunity creation is really driven by sales. As you come down into what I would describe as mid-market accounts, territory, regional accounts, marketing then accounts for 15 to 25% of the opportunity creation. And when you drop a little bit lower to the SMEs, that would equate to 25 to 45%. And whichever way you look at this, right, salespeople have got an awful lot to do. Salespeople are the ones, even in the bottom SME segment, they're the ones who are relying on to generate the opportunities. And sales is a tough game. It's not easy doing this. It's a treadmill that you're going to have to go on, and it's never ending. Every month, from a sales perspective, every month your target goes back to zero, and we start again. And there's no other unit within a business where the scorecard, for example, is reset. So we're going to walk you through how to create a campaign. I'm sharing my screen here. We've got lots of stuff to show you, so you can look over my shoulder, so to speak. And the objective is to obviously create more sales for you. Second, we want to save you time, and that's time in terms of creating the opportunities, but also try and shorten your sales cycle. We obviously want to win you more customers, and we want to help your employees the salespeople specifically have a simple system, repeatable, step-by-step process that they can follow. And if we do that, hopefully you're going to get some value from this. Now, I don't want to be the person that stops every 2 minutes and says, are there any questions? However, I would encourage you, please, I'm just going to keep checking back. If there are questions, I'd love you to just ask. Oftentimes, other people want to ask a question, but they're, for whatever reason, anxious. So oftentimes you will be doing them a favor by asking them questions. So please feel free to use the Q&A on your screen there and ask as many questions as you can. So moving on, how do I cut through the noise? And when we say how to sell to big companies, the question is how big is going to be different for everybody. However, the challenge is largely going to be the same. And nobody on this call is waking up thinking, I don't have enough emails, I don't have enough voicemails, I don't have enough social media stuff to do. Everybody is super busy. So your customers are going to be super busy as well. And it's really difficult to stand out from the crowd and cut through that noise. If you look at the model here, what you can see is that traditionally, salespeople, sales and marketing are almost lined up in a row, and they're creating lots of content. They're sharing that content. They're using white papers. They're emailing prospects. They may be picking up the telephone. They may be doing webinars like this, and to some degree, that is going to work. However, I would challenge that and ask you to think about a different way of doing it. And if you just look at that screen there, and now have a look at this, what do you think would happen if you changed your sales and marketing, and instead of trying to sell and market to everybody, you picked a very small amount of a target audience and focused every single resource you had on trying to sell to that target audience? And I appreciate that's quite this is going to be quite a bit of a mind shift, but the second question I would ask you is, how many clients do you actually need to hit your sales targets? And mostly when we ask our clients that, the answer might be anything between 20 to 200, depending on the size of the organization. But if you just think about it, if you're a business owner on this call, how many deals do you need to make your sales target this year? If you're a salesperson on this call, how many deals do you need to hit your sales target this month and next month? And what would happen if you focused all your energies on half a dozen big accounts and did everything that you could to get those accounts over the line? Now, I'm not saying that you should drop everything, but let's pretend that you used Pareto's law and we applied the 80-20 rule, and we applied 80% of our effort to 20% of our prospect base. And that's where the value is going to be. If you're not sure in terms of how many clients you would need, in terms of how many deals you really need, it's really simple. If your target for the month, if you're a salesperson, your target for a month is 100,000, and you've got a 3.5 to 1 conversion ratio from opportunities in your funnel, then you're going to need 350,000 of opportunities in your pipeline. If you're a business and you've got £1 million goal for the year, and you've got a 3.5 to 1 conversion ratio, you're going to need to have 3.5 million of opportunities in your pipeline. And if you just think about those numbers, if we then cut that back down again, what is it we need to, in terms of opportunities, to meet those numbers? And how can we be smart and it's a huge world out there. I said earlier that the internet's a great leveler, but it's a huge world out there. What can we do? Could we focus our energies? And I'm not just talking about sales. This program, salespeople can do it individually, but it's going to be much more powerful if everybody in the company, all the salespeople, all the marketing people, all the customer support people get together and focus all their energies on bringing those accounts over the line. So, how would we do this? So here's just a simple example of how you would target segmented accounts. Laser, I would suggest that your salespeople would have no more than 10 accounts there. The pen would be 100 accounts, and the brush is going to be 1,000. So we're not ignoring, we're not ignoring that broad brush group of potential clients, but we're focusing our energy on the ones that are most likely to convert and are going to generate high value for the business. And high value for the business, if you're a sales guy, I'm sure you're going to love that, because that's typically going to mean higher value in terms of your commission or bonuses. But either way, it should be easier to meet your sales targets. And we'll come back to this graphic later on, but if you just think about it, if I could just close 10 accounts in the next 90 days, right? What would, if it was the 10 really well chosen high value accounts, what would that do to my figures? So here's a worksheet, and we'll share this with everybody after the webinar. So what I would suggest that you do is you take your product or service, and if you've got a portfolio of services, a portfolio of products, I would choose one that you're going to lead with for this campaign. If you're going to choose 3 or 4, you're going to end up diluting the effort. So choose one product or service that you're going to lead this campaign with, and make sure that you understand that is something that is going to be profitable. So there's no point doing anything unless you're going to make money out of this. It's got to be proven. So don't take something that's necessarily new to market, a new product to market to your customer, this high value audience, because they want a proven solution. They don't want to be your guinea pig, and it's just going to make it more difficult. If you're a SaaS business and you've dialed into this webinar, I would suggest this isn't for what we would describe as the first stage in your product market fit. It's more for the second stage, where you're actually working out what the processes and systems are to scale up before you move to stage 3, the scaling up. So this isn't necessarily the greatest fit for product market fit, but it is for the stage 2 of a SaaS business. So what I'd like you to do is think about, what are the top 10 targets? What we'll do is we'll show you how to pick these 10 targets on this call. We're going to walk you through that, and I want you to take a guesstimate on how much profit, I beg your pardon, to this is going to generate for your company in year 1. And what we want is some form of large enterprise type deal that's going to be what we would describe as a dripping roast that you can feed off. Excuse me, that you can feed off for the next 2 to 3 years. And again, we're going to help you fill that out. We'll make this available to you after the webinar. If you're not sure what your value proposition is, again, we'll make this available. Here's a simple cheat sheet that I would suggest you can use. Not everybody understands what the value proposition is. It's a cousin of your elevator pitch. It's a cousin of your unique selling proposition. They all come from the same stable, so to speak, and I would suggest that you have something there. And this formula is really simple for you to replicate. We provide solutions, so that could be, we provide widgets for machine manufacturing companies who need to solution details who need to increase their production hours, allowing them to create more output from their production lines without including more production workers on the line. Now, I've just made that up. I'm sure you understand the principles and you can polish that off. And again, we'll make this available. There's an example there of the closest one. We provide sales training and coaching for ambitious companies who need to create a repeatable and scalable sales process, allowing them to close high value accounts without wasting more money on sales and marketing strategies that deliver limited results. And this is just one of the sorts of tools that I would suggest that you need before you start to try and sell to big companies. And it's important that as a company, your company, you're all on the same page and you have that, you've got a consistent value proposition. So just bear with me. I'm just going to move around here. We use whiteboards, as you can see, all the time. One of the nuances, I guess, of being a training company. However, I read a recent article. There's 50 million presentations every day. So what are we going to cover off now? So who are we going to target? So here's some ideas for you. Number one, firmographic. Firmographics are details on the details on a company. So that could be, well, how many employees do they have? How many locations do they have? Where are those locations? What sort of organizational structure do they have? It's details around that type of client, that type of organization. Technographic could be if you're selling a bolt-on solution for a specific software like Oracle or Microsoft SharePoint. You want to know what the technographic lay of the organization is. Obviously, if you're selling, I don't know, Google Cloud Services, and you go into an organization and they're a Microsoft house, you're going to have limited chance to convert them. The industry, really easy one. If you've got a solution that sells to the hotel industry, there's an example where you could figure out, okay, so what are the top hotel chains that we do not deal with at the moment? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a target audience, right, of 10 companies that we will focus on over the next 90 days to get these to generate sales opportunities, big sales opportunities. Now, when I say big, I know because when I looked at the registrations, there are some large organizations on this webinar, and you know there potentially isn't any organizations bigger than you. For you, big might be an organization that's big in a specific niche or bespoke industry that you're not currently selling in. If you're a smaller organization, I would urge you to think about, take your largest order excuse me, and then think of a company that could give you 2 to 3 times that. I would suggest you don't go larger than that because you could end up overtrading. Overtrading is when companies go bankrupt because they have to invest so much money gearing up to deliver an order before they're actually getting paid for the order. So I would suggest that you look at, and there's no science to this. I'm sure you'll have a good idea yourself, but as a rough guide, I would suggest 2 to 3 times the current largest order that you have. And you can always work up from that in the next 6 months or 9 months. Excuse me. So we talked about industry, products. If you've got a particular product and you know that particular companies are buying that product, look at those, look at the ones where your competitors are in. If you're not sure who your competitors are selling to, look at the websites. There's usually testimonials on there. And you know, there's a good example of how you could quite quickly find the target audience for your products. Excuse me. Next one would be pain point. So if you've got a solution that solves a common pain, so it could be that it makes the payment makes furlough payments easier. I seen somebody created a spreadsheet specific to furlough payments just earlier in the week, and I thought, what a great idea! So topical, so relevant, and it's something that would be really helpful for anybody who's got that particular problem of delivering these furlough payments, and they're obviously selling to, I'm guessing, bookkeeping, payroll, accountancy type organisations. Customers, so look at your existing customers, what industries or niches are they in, and how would that work? Sorry, I'm just checking the Q&A here. Look at particular customers and see which niches they are in, and you could use that as a guide to actually finding them. So I'm just going to take 5 here and answer some questions. So one from Anonymous, about laser focus. What if a salesperson has 10 accounts, not in a buying mode, no budget? Okay, so that's a great question. You've got 10 accounts, they're not in buying mode. So number one, I would suggest, and I have no idea the industry or context we're talking about, but when a buyer says they've got no money, I wouldn't always believe them. Buyers are liars 100%, except when they don't open their mouths. And I've got no problem with buyers. I'm not being, I'm not in any way trying to be nasty, but when you decided, and this is pre-lockdown, you won't be able to do this now, but when you decided to go and purchase a new shirt or a new bag or a blouse or something, and you walked into a shop, and the assistant comes up to you and says, "How can I help you?" The first thing you say is, "No thanks, I'm just browsing." The easiest way to get rid of a salesperson is say, "I've got no money." Now the test, and I'm sure there's some of some of my clients laughing at this because they know what's going to come. There's a simple test to find out if they've got money. When you're standing outside their offices, right, are the lights on? Because if the lights are on, they got money to pay for electricity. If you're standing outside, right, when you're in the offices, is the toilet flushing? If the toilet's flushing, they've got running water, so they're still paying the water bill. They've got money. They've all got money. It's our job to help them prioritize that money, and we do that by explaining the value that we create, and we put them in a position where they've got a difficult choice to make. And obviously, I'm talking in extremes between. It's a difficult choice between electricity and your solution, but you think about all the other things that they're spending money on. 2008, RBS made the biggest loss in corporate history. They were still spending money. They have to spend money to survive, to keep the wheels turning. So, however, if that industry isn't in the buying mode, there's no point flogging a dead horse. Now, it could be if you're selling to the restaurant trade or whatever, that's going to be a tough gig at the moment. Anything in the high street is going to be difficult. What I would suggest you look at is companies that are in what I would call protected revenue mode. So all of us on this call are still paying for car insurance. All of us are still paying for, Wi-Fi, broadband. I'm sure you can think about it. There are lots of industries that are protected from the lockdown. They're lucky enough to be protected. Those are the ones I would be focusing my energy on. Those are the ones I'd focus my energy on. If you've genuinely got an industry that isn't buying, there's no point flogging a dead horse. Try and find a channel that is going to actually be buying and is going to be active. Hopefully that will help you. Anonymous, if that hasn't answered your question, please feel free to email me afterwards and I'll come back to that. Another Anonymous, what are your thoughts about hiring freelance salespeople from the market that we are targeting to do sales? Example, we are a German company, want to sell my services to British companies. I would be very cautious about hiring freelance salespeople. You're not going to get all their attention because they're like everybody else. They're going to follow the money and they're going to follow the easiest path to the money. Now, if you're selling magic wands and pixie dust, right, and the salesperson can get $1 million a time, right, they will sell it. But if it's not easy, right, they're going to follow the money, as I said, and also they're no different to you. They probably want security. They probably want some sort of long-term uh, uh, security, especially in the current environment. So I'm not saying that it won't work. All I'm saying is that's going to be a difficult ask, and you probably burn through a lot of salespeople to find one or two good ones that are going to stick with you. And again, feel free to contact me, and I'll do my best to maybe put you in touch with some people if I can. Another one, I'm not going to read out any names. Ian, as a manufacturer, we supply via distribution, but we influence end customer specification. Would you do this activity based on end customer or on our distribution channel? That's a great question. So I think everything that we do, I would suggest that you're going to A/B test it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. My gut feeling would be to drive this campaign to the end users and generate business to the distributors. They will love you if you're creating more money for them and more value for them, and you will tie them in. You might find there's a way that you can work together with them on that, and that would probably be my preference. And you'll also find out which distributors are really up for the fight, so to speak, and which ones aren't. So if you can use them, and you know, the more people you've got working on this, the better it's going to be. Excuse me, the more powerful and the better the results it would be. But whatever you do, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, run a campaign to the distribution channel, run a campaign to the end users, and then see if ask the question to your channel. Any of you distributors would like to get involved in this, and just see what the response is. Okay, so somebody's put there, a protected market would be banking, where there is money, but planning takes ages. Yep, when you're selling to big accounts, these people are highly unlikely to get a credit card out and just sign up over the telephone. These people have got budgets to work to plan and work to, and unless you get into that planning process, right, you're just not going to be in the race. Now, I appreciate this. That's probably not the answer you want to hear, but I use the analogy. When the farmer sows a seed, he doesn't turn up the very next day with a combine harvester looking to harvest the crop. The farmer sows the seed and then spends the following weeks and months nurturing, watering, feeding that seed so that it does actually deliver a harvest in 6 to 9 months' time. Now, when you sell to big companies, the fact is they work to budgets, it's all planning, but the best time to start is always now. The best time to start selling to start that process is now. It doesn't matter if they've got a 3-year plan. The best time to do this is now. And I think the danger is that everybody wants a quick fix, an instant win, and in big account selling, that's unlikely. I'm never going to say impossible, but it's unlikely to happen. You know, the CEOs, the board, the executive directors of these large organizations are unlikely to buy anything that's not planned for. Now, what you could do, I would suggest, is create what we call a bridgehead, which is something under £5,000, and that could be something that you're going to lead with, and that's much more likely to be potentially approved outside of typical planning. Because some of these companies, the directors will spend £5,000 on the company credit card on a monthly basis. You know, these companies are big spenders, but if you can create whatever bridgehead is, some sort of quick win that will prove your competency, prove the value that you can deliver, you're much more likely to get that over. But the big deal will not come unless it's actually planned into their process. And I would encourage you to just think about it. Your competition have got the same problems. So it's not anything particular to you and your business. Your competition have got the same issues. So I'm just going to go back to the screen. I think I've answered all the questions. If there's any more, please feel free to use the Q&A again. That's great. So as I said, we're trying to create a target list of 10 accounts that are the most likely to buy from you. I would suggest that you make sure that you've got, for this particular segment of accounts, you've got things like case studies. You've got things like testimonials. You've got proof of ROI in some way so that you can actually prove the business case to these people. And if you're not familiar with business cases, often a big company would like, in order to put something forward for approval, they will need to create a business case. Don't be scared off by business cases. If you're not sure what a business case is, you can email us, and we've got a template that you can use to actually create your own business case. And it's a great tool if you are selling to a large organization. Just simply ask the question to your contacts in this. Do you mind if I ask? I'm assuming you're going to be creating a business case for this. Is this something that we could help you shape? Is this something that you can help you with? So, our job as salespeople is to do whatever we can, and if we can be the salesperson that helps create that business case and shape it to favor our solution, we're going to be a little bit more likely, I would imagine, to get that deal when it actually comes. So, do we have case studies? Do we have testimonials? Have we sold to this vertical before? Have we had repeat business from this vertical? That's really, really important. The other one that's not there, another good one would be visitor. So when I say visitor, what I mean by visitor is that all of you have a website, and typically what's going to happen is that your buyers are going to be looking for solutions online, and you might not even know that you're on your website. Well, there's obviously tools that you can get, anything from literally free plugins and tools to things that like £25,000 licenses per annum that will track the visitors on your website. So it may well be that if you look at the visitors in your website, that you can go, oh, there's a company who have visited my website. They're obviously looking for a solution. Use the analytics. I wouldn't necessarily chase people that have only looked at one page, but if they looked at 2 or 3 pages, if they've come back 3 or 4 times, reach out to these people, put them on your hit list of 10. That's providing that they're a big organization. Put them on your hit list of 10, right? And target them, because they've obviously got some sort of problem and need, and that's why they're on your website. They're actively looking for a solution. The other one on their customer, excuse me, I didn't actually explain. A great technique would be to create a hero out of one of your customers and use them to lead the campaign. So let's pretend you've sold a particular solution to an IT director. You could create a campaign around discover how John Jones, IT director at ABC Inc., moved the business to the cloud and slashed the operating costs by 52%. So turn one of your customers into a hero. You obviously have to get their permission for this, but there's a way to do this so that it's going to benefit them as well. Turn one of your customers into a hero and use them to front a campaign. And what you've got to do is, if you're on this call, white papers, emails, all that sort of stuff is good stuff, but you need a little bit more than that to actually cut through the noise. And the more specific and relevant it is to your target audience, the more likely they're going to go, that's interesting. I'm going to check this out. So, and title, what I mean by that is job title. Job titles are a good one too. If you've already got a history of dealing with IT directors, you could do, discover 20 reasons why IT directors use our blah, 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 blah. So it's about creating a campaign and getting the messaging right in that campaign. Sorry, analytics is the one where it would be tracking your web visitors. Forgive me. If you don't have databases on your audience to actually see, to actually generate this list of 10, you can use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Just plug in all the data that you need in terms of for your filter, and it'll spit out a list of any amount of leads by industry, by job title, but by company size, by revenue. You can do all that via Sales Navigator. I believe Sales Navigator is about 60 odd pounds a month or something. If you're in a team and you don't want to buy 5 times 60, one person could buy it and use it to generate the lists for the rest of the team. So moving forward, once we've done this, I'm just going to cover off this point here. Expanding existing accounts. If you've already got existing accounts, right, number one, what I would suggest is that if you've got an existing account and you've only got one contact there, we would deem that account to be at risk. And that account's at risk because your contact could be made redundant, they could leave the company, they could be furloughed, whatever. Right? You need multiple contacts in your accounts. According to the latest research by IDC, buying teams, the number of people in buying teams is over 8, and that's up 43%. Now, I've also seen studies that are showing that the buying teams are up as many as 12 people. So the idea of this is that we get 10 accounts, but within those 10 accounts, what I'm going to suggest you do is get at least 3, 4, 5 people, decision makers and influencers from each of those accounts, because one person will not make this decision, especially if it's in a big company. Right? I'm not going to say that they buy by committee, but they buy in what I would describe as project teams. There's teams set up to deliver on a particular project, and that could be an improvement project, or and you need to make sure that you've got the people in that project. And there'll be some with more power, some with less power. And again, I would urge you to look at that. And you would need, what you're going to need is different messaging for each of those contacts, because the value proposition for a VP of sales is hugely different to the value proposition for a finance director. Sales directors, all they want is something that's going to help them sell more. Finance directors want something that's going to help them save money. So you have to make sure that, don't lead with generic messaging. You've got to contact each of these with individual messaging. If you just lead with a generic message, in effect, this is spam. Telephone spam, web spam, email spam, right? If it's generic, it's spam. Some ideas here on how do I identify these decision makers? This isn't easy. This graphic here is actually a combination of some stuff by Miller Hyman, who I would acknowledge is the largest training organization in the world, and Tony Paranello, who came out with the veto concept years ago and had 3 or 4 best-selling books in it. We've sort of put them all together, and this is the model that we use. And in every organization, you're going to have Vito is the very important top officer. He's the leader of that buying project. The user buyer is in some way involved in the operations, the actual use of whatever product or service you're selling. Financial buyer, it's all about the money, ROI, risk. Technical buyer, integration, compliance, and governance. And the last one's your white knight. And that's going to be, some form of person who is going to help you actually navigate their internal buying process. And if you haven't got someone who's going to be your white knight inside the organization, it's going to be a tough ask. Influencers tend to be outside the organization. They could be non-execs, board advisors. Sorry, I've just realised there's a typo on that screen. Forgive me. White Knight could be anyone in any of the other quadrants, but they are based inside the organisation. And as I said, influencers are non-execs, board advisors, external stakeholders. So, for years, lots of business owners turned to their accountant to get advice on IT solutions. Oftentimes, ops directors will turn to the IT director to get advice on some form of new operating software. I'm sure you're aware of this, and every industry is going to be slightly different. So, is this time consuming? Absolutely. Right? Is it going to be valuable? Absolutely. And some of these people, excuse me, some of these people are going to be really difficult to get a hold of, but that's the nature of what we do in sales. These people will be difficult to get a hold of. And in the event that you don't get a hold of them, as a backstop, I would suggest that all these value proposition, all this messaging should be on your website, because they will be on your website whether you know or not. You make one approach and it's successful and they're interested, they will share the information internally, and they will actually go, those people in the different departments, the different project team, they will go on your website and they'll be doing their due diligence. So make sure that anything that you do is congruent, your website rather is congruent with any sales campaign that you're going to send out. So it's got the right messaging, it's targeting the right audience. Next one here is strategic account selection. Now, what would a strategic account be? So just very simply, a strategic account is an account that is going to give you some advantage in the marketplace if you got them over the line. If they became a customer, it's going to give you some advantage to you. So it would typically be a bigger brand than you, but again, it might be a smaller brand who are bigger in a particular niche. They must have influence in the market. Ideally, they'd have a network that you could tap into. If you tap into, we're working with a SaaS company at the moment, and they're looking at a particular distribution network that's got, I don't know, maybe about 150 resellers worldwide. Well, if they can get the main company on board, and that will bring in on board that distribution network, the reseller network, that's going to be a huge value to them. Do they have a network? Do they have common goals to you? What are their goals? Are their goals? I'm talking about in the relevant market. Have they got common goals? Do you have common values? If you don't have shared values, you'll find it very difficult to maintain a relationship with them. So many companies, for example, sales companies may struggle to partner up with technically led organizations because they've got just different approaches. One's got a sales led approach and the other's got a technical led approach. And if you get those partnerships right, they can deliver real value to you. And I know there's people on this call from Microsoft. We're lucky enough to partner with them some time ago, and to this day we still win business. I think last week or the week after, we won a new account based on a relationship that was started, I'm guessing about 8-10 years ago with Microsoft. So some of these relationships can hopefully will last a long time for you. And the other question is, what direction is their industry trending? Is the trend going upwards or down? If it's down, I wouldn't necessarily write it off, because down means there's a lot of pain and they may be more open to actually trying new ideas. So don't necessarily write things off because they're in a downward trend, a downward market, because those guys might be more interested in your solutions because they're forced into making decisions that they may not normally take. So again, we talked about this earlier. I would suggest you look 10, 100, and 1,000 companies. And then what you need to do is, really for the 10 accounts, it's got to be so personal that nobody would believe that it was actually anything other than a message exclusively for them. And then you just work back from that. This takes time. It takes a bit of planning and takes a bit of nous. But you can absolutely do this. And once you've done it a couple of times, you find it really easy. I'm going to share these documents with you. So this document here, I will make sure that we email to everybody. And that's just the cheat sheet to create that 10. I would suggest that it's going to be more, the list will be stronger if you include everybody, sales and customer service and your leadership team in this. But you've got to have the salespeople. If the salespeople aren't involved, they're not going to be bought into it. Once you've done that, again, we'll share this with you. This document here is where you can do the research. You can find out who the actual buyers are, what sort of influence they've got, what the position is, what the cost of their paying is, what's the stalls and objections. A simple thing like knowing the stalls and objections up front will allow your salespeople to prepare. So when they get hit with that stall and objection, they're not like a rabbit in the headlights or a deer in the headlights. They can respond immediately. They can counter that immediately. And again, one last thing, I'm not going to share this with you because of the size of the document, but if you've not already got it, you can go to our website and you can download this playbook. And this playbook is a great place to hold all these documents and create a living, breathing sales repository for your salespeople. There's lots of templates in there. It's free of charge. I promised there was nothing for sale. There is nothing for sale. So you're more than welcome to go to our website and download that. I'm not sure where it is on the website, but if you just Google Closer Sales Playbook, it'll take you straight to that page. I've got 4 minutes to answer questions. Let me see what else we've got in terms of questions. Any more questions? Any more questions? I'm just going to hit publish here because I've done some of these. Buying databases. Are there any particularly sound resources in fast-moving FMCG? I presume that's fast-moving consumer goods, manufacturing, or industrial who are not using LinkedIn so much? Any database that are particular? So it's not the cheapest, but the one that's really the benchmark I would suggest is Dun & Bradstreet. There's some others. Whoever's I know this is an anonymous question. Whoever asked that question, if you want to email me afterwards, I'll dig out a list of suggestions for you, and hopefully that will help you. 3 minutes to go. I apologise. This has been extremely rushed. Can I just ask, is there any more questions? Has anybody got anything you'd like to ask? If you're uncomfortable asking on the webinar, my email address is Ian, and that's IAIN at closers.com. I'm just going to see if I can actually put this up on the screen for you. Ian at closers.com, and you're more than welcome to email me. You can get me on LinkedIn. You can contact us through the website. But any questions, you're more than welcome to ask me. One last thing just before we sign off, and if there's any feedback at all, we'd be super grateful if you could give us feedback. Is there anything that we missed out that you would like to be included? Is there anything that we didn't cover that we should have covered? Please, any feedback, even if it's negative, it will help us do a better job the next time. We'd really appreciate any feedback. I will make the recording for this. I'll make this live. I'll make it available I'll put it on the website, and anybody can refer back to this. But again, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask me. So 13:59. I'm going to finish 1 minute early because there's no more questions. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I really do appreciate it. I really hope this has been of benefit. As I said, I'll send these documents off to you, and if we can be of any more help, please do get in touch. Thanks a lot, guys, and I hope the rest of the afternoon goes really great for you. Thank you.